What does the Bible say about selling in church? The first scriptures that come to mind in regard to selling in the church are Matthew 21 verses 12 to 13, Mark 11 verses 15 to 17, Luke 19 verses 45 to 46, and John 2 verses 13 to 17, all of which describe the incidents. There were two, when Jesus cleansed the temple. When he saw the kinds of activities that were being carried on in his Father's house, he became very angry. Clearly, this was not what the temple was built for. Jesus regarded both merchants and customers guilty of desecrating the temple. Items being bought and sold included animals for sacrifice, John 2 verse 14. And Jesus went into the temple of God, and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. Also present were those who exchanged one currency for another. This was needed because Roman coins and other forms of currency were deemed unacceptable for temple offerings. The temple was the place where God met with his people. This marketplace would have been obstructing worship, and specifically taking up space that had been set aside for Gentiles to worship. Evidently, both merchants and money changers were charging such excessive rates that the temple marketplace took on the atmosphere of a thieves' den, Matthew 21 verse 13. Obviously, selling books, having a raffle, doing fundraising, etc., is different from what was going on in the temple. Jesus was not necessarily angry that they were selling in the temple, but rather that selling was becoming the focus instead of God. Jesus was also angry that the money changers were taking advantage of people, many of whom were poor, who needed their services. Pigeons and other animals were required for the offering, and tithes and acceptable currency were also a requirement. Such is not the case in today's churches. Purchases in a church bookstore or at a church craft sale, for example, are entirely voluntary. Another specific rule governed weights and measures, having two different sets, one for buying and the other for selling, was forbidden, Deuteronomy 25 verse 15. God said that those who cheated with such unfair business practices were an abomination to him. The Bible is full of references to giving in the church. Christians are called to be cheerful givers in 2 Corinthians 2 verses 8 to 9, and Jesus praised the widow who gave her last 2 coins at the temple in Mark 12 and Luke 21. In the book of Nehemiah, in the Old Testament, the people were taught to observe the Sabbath with the following instruction, And if the people of the land bring where or any victuals on the Sabbath day to sell, that we would not buy it of them on the Sabbath, or on the holy day. No purchase is necessary to attend worship. If a church does decide to sell something inside the church or to host a fundraiser, it should make sure that the selling does not receive undue attention and does not draw away from worship and the teaching of God's Word. Selling should also never be made high pressure.